Hell breaks loose as Zelensky attacks right in Russia, and this early morning sent Moscow into panic. Amen. Ukraine brought the war to St. Petersburg, hit oil infrastructure at the port, and also targeted Kronstadt, a sensitive military point in the Baltic Sea. The message was not hidden. In a technical statement, Zelensky called the operation long-range Ukrainian sanctions. Meanwhile, Putin was trying to project an image of control. Smoke was rising near one of Russia's most important cities, precisely the hometown of the Russian president. Ukraine didn't just defend itself within its own territory, it went after the enemy's economic lifeline right inside Russia. At the same time, reports of blackouts in Belgorod began to emerge, warning about a possible Russian provocation against Poland and a yacht linked to Putin being moved under naval escort. And Trump talking to Putin and Zelensky on the same day. What did Zelensky really hit? Why does Putin seem increasingly pressured within Russia itself? How does Trump fit into this game amid the crossfire? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. Ukrainian forces attacked during the early hours of July 4, 2026, targeting the St. Petersburg region and areas near the Baltic Sea. The main focus was the port oil infrastructure, which Kyiv considers part of the machinery that finances the Russian war. There was also an attack on Kronstadt, which Zelensky described as an important military target. The distance is impressive because the attack went beyond the pattern of pressure limited to the border. And it showed that Ukraine continues to expand its reach against Russian areas that previously seemed more protected. The St. Petersburg terminal has strategic importance because it serves as a major storage, transshipment, and export point for petroleum products. It is connected to the large port of St. Petersburg in the Gulf of Finland and is mentioned by Ukrainian outlets as a facility. With an annual capacity of around 12.5 million tons, Russian authorities tried to control the extent of the damage. Governor Alexander Beglov stated that the Kirovsky district was hit and that Russian defenses shot down 72 drones over St. Petersburg and the surrounding region. Ukrainian drones got close to one of Russia's most protected cities, and the smoke in the port became the kind of scene the Kremlin can't explain. Without admitting vulnerability, Zelensky embraced the political message behind the attack with a calculated phrase when talking about far-reaching sanctions. He took the discussion out of the purely military field and put it into the economic field. If Russia uses oil to finance the war, Ukraine will target the structure that helps this money circulate. This also ties in with the request made by Zelensky to international leaders to keep up the pressure on the Russian oil sector, and about the so-called shadow fleet, used to bypass restrictions and maintain exports. The attack in Kronstadt added weight to the operation. The island houses a military structure linked to Russian defense in the Baltic and carries symbolic value for Moscow. Belgorod also made the news under pressure. Local reports and Ukrainian outlets pointed to explosions, a fire in an energy facility, and electricity outages. The information circulated as another sign that the war has returned inside Russia, hitting sensitive points, especially energy, communications, and supply. Moscow always tried to make Russian citizens believe that the war was something distant. These attacks break that bubble. Gradually, the Russian reaction followed the familiar script. Putin downplayed the strategic relevance of the attacks on energy and tried to maintain the narrative of progress on the battlefield. But the problem for the Kremlin isn't just the physical damage, it's the accumulation. Refineries, terminals, power plants, ports, and military bases have started to appear more frequently on the list of targets. Each attack creates cost, fear, delay, and doubt within a machine that depends on psychological control just as much as it depends on ammunition. The episode with the yacht linked to Putin reinforced that sense of pressure. Reports based on the Telegraph stated that the super yacht Graceful, also associated with the name Kosatka, left European waters heading to Murmansk, escorted by Russian ships. The vessel, about 82 meters long and valued at around 100 million pounds sterling, was reportedly moved due to fears of Ukrainian attacks. While Russia tries to show strength, assets linked to the top of the power structure are being protected and moved away from the risk zone. Whereas the Kremlin once seemed comfortable in the Baltic, now high-value structures and vessels need escort, monitoring, and protection against drones. This alone doesn't bring down Putin, but it wears away at the image of invulnerability he has sold for years. And in a war of attrition, image is also fuel. Poland has come into the spotlight for another reason. Reports attributed to Telegraph and Onet said that US intelligence warned Warsaw about a possible Russian provocation on Polish territory. With scenarios involving hybrid attacks, drones, critical infrastructure, or movement on the border with Belarus and Kaliningrad, this possible plan would have the political goal of testing NATO's response, creating division among allies, and trying to push the West into negotiations under pressure. Russia knows that a provocation on Polish territory would have an immediate impact because Poland is a NATO member and part of the main support corridors to Ukraine. If Moscow managed to create confusion without clearly taking responsibility, it would try to turn fear into a diplomatic advantage. While all this was happening, Putin called Donald Trump on the United States Independence Day. The conversation took place on July 4, 2026, lasted about 85 minutes according to Podder 360, and began with congratulations on the 250th anniversary of American independence. The Kremlin said the call was objective and constructive, with discussions about Ukraine, Iran, bilateral relations, and the possibility of expanding contacts between the governments. Yuri Ushakov, Putin's advisor, stated that Trump reaffirmed his willingness to help seek a solution to the war, with the possibility of another trip to Moscow. Zelensky also spoke with Trump on the same day. The Ukrainian president congratulated the Americans on July 4th. He thanked the United States for the support received and said that the two talked about the front line and diplomatic efforts. The two agreed to continue the conversation during the NATO summit in Ankara. Ukraine wants peace, but does not want the peace imposed by Putin as a reward for the invasion. The war is now entering a phase in which Russian territory is no longer just a comfortable rear area. St. Petersburg, Kronstadt, Belgorod, and the Baltic Sea itself are emerging as pressure points. Without money from the energy sector, Russia loses its ability to fund troops, logistics, replenishment, and propaganda. That's why Kyiv insists on targeting fuel-related facilities and asks allies to maintain sanctions. The next showcase will be the NATO summit in Ankara, where Trump and Zelensky are expected to continue the conversation about the front lines, air defense, sanctions, and negotiations. Putin reaches this moment trying to appear open to dialogue, but under pressure from attacks deeper and deeper inside Russian territory. Zelensky shows that Ukraine should not wait for Russia to choose the time for peace. Thank you very much for watching this video until the end. Support our project and contribute financially through the Pix key that appears on your screen. We are an independent channel focused on keeping you informed with the truth. Your contribution helps us keep going.